Okay, I'd like to open the Town Manager Act Review Committee. It is now 6 p.m. Before we begin, I'd like to ask for a motion to accept the meeting agenda as posted.
So move. Make a motion to approve the agenda.
You just did.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of January 31st.
Well, we have to get the agenda done, please. You agreed?
I agree.
Okay, so it's obviously Phil has to abstain. Now we'll have a motion to accept the meeting minutes as submitted January 31st, 2024. Any comments? I only have one.
Okay.
And you're sitting next to me. I don't know what was meant by the
Oh.
triple X. Was there?
8.
Oh, okay. So I did read them, huh?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Do we have a motion?
Second.
Okay. All right, majority action of the board or the committee. Okay, we were going to have Selectwoman Maureen Dwinell here. At this point, she hasn't arrived. So one of the other things we were going to discuss is reviewing section 3 of the special acts of the town manager act. I have notes on these, Phil, but if you'd like a copy. The first thing we talked about, and it's specific to gender because I shouldn't sound Bostonian, but it says his throughout this. I don't know what the generic term is to replace that, but
Is her.
is her. So that would be is her. The other thing was the town manager, it says shall not serve Board of Selectmen. That's confusing. I interpret it to mean the manager shall not have served on the Board of Selectmen or for at least 12 months before his or her appointment. Clarity there. I can give you a copy of this. That's more to it.
Okay.
And the last thing I had is on the vacancy to be filled. One of the things said at the board's discretion, if they don't agree with the original search screening committee, they can reappoint another screening committee. I would like to propose the option for the board, if they are not satisfied with the screening committee, to go outside to a professional firm if they so elect. Any comment?
We did that, just from experience.
Yes.
We did that when we hired, as part of the search that we hired Derek.
Correct.
I had an issue with the firm that was hired.
Okay.
They referred a candidate to the committee who had been accused in his current job of sexual harassment. And I thought that was very inappropriate to do. Why would they refer so? I mean, it was only, he wasn't found guilty of any of that. He was accused of it. And it was public knowledge because I found it on the internet.
Correct. But did they not put it in their search that was the case?
No, they
No.
didn't inform
Okay.
anyone
All
that
right.
that was the case. Now, that was just this particular firm that the selectman at the time chose to hire for this particular search. So I don't want to make generalizations that it applies to all of them, but I was not happy with that.
Okay.
Could I ask the chair why the chair suggests to take away from the citizens who have been appointed? I understand the selectmen don't necessarily have to follow that appointed board, but why go to a professional board? Why not go back in the community and let other people who are going to be impacted by whatever the appointment might be to have opinion? And if it comes back again and the selectmen don't want it, maybe the selectmen are wrong not to follow what the appointed boards want. I don't think I'd be in favor of a professional board. It should go back into the community.
Okay. Dick, any comment?
I think it's a double-edged sword to a certain extent. If however we advertise, if we advertise to a wide enough berth, I agree with Alan. If we don't do that, a search committee is going to bring in a probably broader field. But I think that we advertise in a number of different ways.
If I could just offer just a comment, because I've seen this happen in multiple ways. And for the record, just because I'm slightly off camera, joking town manager. I've seen instances where, say, it's a committee and then they do the whole search themselves. They weren't really satisfied when I mean the Board of Selectmen, and they constitute a new committee, and that committee then decides, hey, look, we want assistance, so that they'll request of the Board of Selectmen funds to then hire an outside consultant. I've seen that happen a couple of times when there's been challenges, so I think the screening committee is still important to work with an outside consultant. If it's desirable, there are many communities that now have done this. So that's sometimes one of the things that I have seen happen when maybe a process the first time around doesn't work or produce the candidates that maybe people really feel comfortable with.
Okay. Anybody else?
This is just for the screening. Yes, correct.
Yes, the Board of Selectmen have the final say based upon submitting a list of applicants. Usually a screening committee will list their top. And the Board of Selectmen have the opportunity to then interview, pursue with it. It's pretty much at their discretion. The only reason I put it down, and Joe reaffirmed where I was going with this, sometimes if a screening committee gets in a locked position where they can't find a candidate or there's something disruptive within that process, they have another option to go back with another screening committee. And hypothetically, if there's still a problem, maybe outside assistance is provided. That's where I'm really looking forward to.
What outside assistance?
Well, sometimes the research that needs to be done. As was mentioned, there was a process done before where the firm didn't gather all the data. But if they don't, how is the screening committee going to get all that data? So an applicant submit
They were supposed to.
what they were supposed, I agree. But I'll use the same argument. If the screening committee does the work, they're not going to find out either. So,
Right.
So if the screening committee needs assistance in some form to do more background, more analysis, more something, I think a screening committee, in my opinion, would have that resource.
So Joe, correct me if the things that the screening committee, that the professional recruiting company could do that a screening committee can't was background checks, like the what do they call the Corey checks? They do they were supposed to do extensive research on each potential candidate that they brought forward so that we would have the benefit of that information. So that is something that a screening committee by themselves can't do.
That's correct.
So, but, so sometimes it can work, sometimes not so well.
Well, to be
Is it
clear,
in replacement of or in
no,
addition
to be clear, I'm not saying eliminate the screening committee. I'm saying use an outside firm to assist the screening committee. So a good example is you have, I was on the last one, the last town manager search. I was on that screening committee. And there's a lot of information that you need to gather, and the screening committee doesn't have those resources. So the Board of Selectmen hired an individual to assist the screening committee, and that individual is now town manager in Northbrook. So that person did come in, so there was an outside assistance contracted to assist.
If that outside entity is a resource, I don't have a problem. What I thought you said was if the first one somehow can't get it done, then rather than have another committee formed to have a resource take over the situation. I thought that's what you said.
No, what I said it wrong. What I'm saying is if screening committees, first one goes through and the selectmen not satisfied that there isn't enough, there's another screening committee. That screening committee finds that they're the roadblock. There should be some alternative to getting some contractual assistance.
Well, it's going to have to be selectmen input because you're going to have to pay that entity and the committee has the
Absolutely.
authority to do that.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yep. But I'm just saying, make it so it's available. This does not allow that.
Well, make it then available even for that first committee if they so choose.
But
Well,
the language,
if it wasn't allowed, then how did it happen?
That's a good question. It's a good question.
Says either way, make it whether it's allowed or not.
Yeah, so I want to be specific. That's all I'm
So-
asking for.
If I remember correctly, when we did the last search for town manager, or no, the previous one, not the last,
Mhm.
the Board of Selectmen appointed the screening committee, and at the same time, they hired the firm to help. It wasn't that they weren't satisfied with the candidates that the screening committee found.
Nope.
It was done initially to help the screening committee, whittle down the candidate pool to, 3, which was the goal.
Correct.
3. So it was done at the same time. It wasn't, we have a screening committee, they didn't find anybody, let's appoint another one and give them this help. So it was done at the same time. And I think if we're going to allow that to happen in the future, that would be the way I would suggest we do it, is the Board of Selectmen hires hires a firm to work with the screening committee
Mhm.
at the same time. And if after that process, you don't find any candidates that they like, I don't know what they would do next, because if a screening committee they do a much broader search than a screening committee can do.
Correct.
In my
But-
experience with that.
Yeah, I would change the language to say, allow them to request or to hire contractual assistants. I make it vague because you may want them just to go out and do a background query check. An agency, I mean, you could do it internally, but the screening committee doesn't have the right to go into some of these.
Right.
So this would allow that. Plus there were things, and there are things we can't say
Is
because.
that really though at the pleasure of the Board of Selectmen? Because that resource is going to have to get paid.
Correct, that's what I'm
So,
saying.
no, I understand
Yeah.
that, but then who'll determine what amount of funds, because you might get a difference in performance, depending on how much you're willing to spend. So I guess it's going to be at the discretion of the Board of Selectmen, even though this is an appointed entity, to hire that resource and whatever they're willing to pay from whatever fund there is in the town to pay for it.
So if the screening committee goes to the Board of Selectmen, and says we need assistance, I'm in favor of the selectmen saying we can provide that. Because you're hiring a town manager, and that's not a decision that you want to make lightly. You want to make sure that you checks and balances. I will speak to the last search committee I was on. I thought the makeup of the committee, the screening committee, was outstanding. They were excellent.
Is that because you were honest?
No, actually, I stepped off partway through. I couldn't complete the process for personal reasons, but the people that I worked with, I was very impressed with their detail, their attentiveness. They're really dedicated to doing the right job. And they were a diverse group. It wasn't made up of people. As a matter of fact, there were 2 people I had never met, which was to me the right way. And there are 2 women. One had a personnel background. She worked for a major corporation as VP of personnel. Another one worked in education. And then there was one that was an attorney. They were made up of different walks and talks of life. And to me, it was an excellent committee. And all I say is that committee had some research assistants, and that's all I'm putting on the table. I'm not in favor of hiring a committee to go out and make that decision. Please take that off the table if that's what people are thinking. No, I don't. That would never be what I'd want. I'm just saying contractual assistance to a screening committee is beneficial in their process. That's all. And if they don't want it, fine be.
I think because of your clarity now, I think it's something that I would certainly perhaps
Okay.
vote for. I guess I'd like to see it in writing, whatever it is that you're proposing.
Well, we will be going, once we discuss all this, and thank you to the recording secretary, all our discussions are going to be encapsulated, processed. And we will go back and revisit those as to what we discussed. We're not taking any actions, we're just in debate at this point. And I think that's excellent.
Okay.
So,
I think you should have the options in there, Bob. Have it outlined as how it would go, not just if or what, but if,
Mhm.
if or what, yeah. If this doesn't happen, this can happen, but don't start with a search committee. I think I'd start with a regular committee and let them move forward in that.
The screening committee, you mean? Yeah, right. I don't see anything changing this. I'm just saying, put an addendum to it.
It is probably not the right time, but Steve brought up Cory checks or background checks. When is that done in the process?
We did that when, the process, so let me explain, it was probably similar to the one you were on. We had initially 21 applicants. We all had paper copies. We went home on our own. We came back and we went through each applicant one at a time and the consensus of debate as to whether that person should be on or not. And we eventually cut it down to 12. And then we went back and did the same thing in deeper. When we get down to, that was about the time I stepped off, but when it got down to like 10, that was when the deeper and backgrounds were, the Cory investigate, contact people, references and things like that. Even if a reference wasn't provided, the difficult part is you contact the community and they're very hesitant to say anything because the law says that, especially if somebody left on their own, it's like, that's all we're going to say. So, I know one individual that, went through that process and said it was very detailed. They really, put them through the test, so to speak.
Before we go further, could we request maybe the town manager to reach out to select person
Yeah.
Maureen?
Yeah, well,
I can grab my phone, it's downstairs and.
would you please?
Sure.
Because I would hate to adjourn and then 5 minutes later she shows up, but
Right, especially because maybe the 6 o'clock hour, maybe is what sort of costs. A lot of our meetings start at 7.
true. Okay. So does anyone have anything else on section 3?
No,
Yeah. Would you like a copy?
I have it in my office.
Okay,
It's called memory.
okay.
You've got the his to.
Yeah, just to, yeah. The language was obviously in 2008, a number of things have changed since then. And also the board should be select board, right? Saying that's going to, we discussed that as well. So, other than that, what else? Oh, we had, last week we talked about, Alan, you proposed it, sending out notification for citizens input. And the questions were very basic, what do you think of where we are now? What would you like to see change? How would you like to see it change? That type of thing. And I spoke to Joe about, town manager, about getting it out into the community. And he is going to be posting it on websites and where there's citizen access. And
I'd
try
make one
websites.
suggestion.
Yeah.
There's no longer a town crier, but there is a paper that I would hope that the selectmen, through maybe the selectmen fund, would be willing to pay to have I don't want to call it an advertisement, but a notice to the community, because every home gets that written publication. And I think that would be the most effective as opposed to internet. There's also another option. Maybe we can have somebody post it on the town sign. As people drive by, maybe they'll read that. But honestly, the publication is the best way to make sure, excuse me, every household gets notice.
So we'll do that. I'll see if that can be done. I'll propose it to the board and ask them. It's certainly isn't a lot of money for
Be
the
$150.
for the benefit of it.
200,
So, yeah, for the benefit of which is far greater. So. Okay, that's pretty much where we are. We talked about not meeting next week, but we will be meeting on the 21st.
She's on there.
She is on her way. Okay, on the 21st, we will be addressing section 4, which is really, I'd say maybe put that in 2 weeks. Section 4 goes all the way to the letter V. So it's 25 points there to be considered. And I would ask that we defer that to 2 meetings or run it through 2 meetings. Let's see. Other than that, I would accept the motion to reset until the.
Motion to recess.
Second.
Okay, we're in recess until Chairman Dwinell shows up. Thank you. Maureen Dwinell, the Board of Selectmen. And the intent of this again is to gather input from a selectman's perspective as to the Town Manager Act and how it interacts with the board and any comments she would have relative to pros and cons of the act. So I would turn it over to you, unless you prefer we start with questions, your call. Okay. All right, the first one I have is the conflict with the personnel bylaws. There seem to be some conflicts relative to a town manager's authority relative to actions and contradictions within the personnel bylaw. We spoke last week that there are some, as an example, a town manager has authority over employees under the Board of Selectmen, but outside of that, there are employees town manager doesn't have any authority over. And the question is, should he or she have that authority? Where the personnel bylaw sets salaries, scales, compensation, levels of responsibility. For, I would say the Board of Selectmen probably have, if I pick a number, over 80% of the employees work under some authority of the Board of Selectmen, and that leaves 15 to 20. We have diverse opinions on it. I'd just like to see if you have any comment to that.
Well, I think to make it easier for town manager for day-to-day operations, she
So interact, all employees would work in unison on one. Okay, all right. Anybody else have a question, please?
So if I could ask, an elected board hires an employee. Would you like to see the town manager be responsible for overseeing the work that that employee does? 'Cause I don't know who does that now.
Well, I think you should have some day-to-day operations for the board.
Right.
Would I like to see him have the authority? Well, I'd have to look at the pros and cons.
What about doing an annual employee review?
Absolutely.
Um, Does the town manager currently have the authority to approve a budget request from the elected board?
To judge.
What about discipline?
It's tough. Discipline. I mean, somebody has to discipline. It's hard to discuss that with elected board because the employee comes on the elected board. But if that person isn't doing the job, he has no authority.
Right.
And I think discipline should be. He is personnel directors also, the act.
So when you say nobody has authority, let's say that it's an independent elected board and they're the ones that did the hiring. They should be the ones, don't you agree then? Because they were elected by the citizens, just like the Board of Selectmen was. So I think in our prior meeting, my position was then if the people elected aren't doing their job, the citizen, somebody should do a recall and appoint somebody who will do the job. It's just my concern that, and again, I understand everybody's concerned that there should be a central person who's educated in it and capable to do it. But I just have to respect the independence of elected boards who get to hire who they want within their responsibility. And in my mind, the citizens felt enough trust in them to elect them. And hopefully the citizens' trust is well placed and they have a job to do. If they don't get them out, that's my position.
Job. They're not doing the job. How does that elected board know that? They are day to day. operations.
And more importantly, how does any resident know that they're not doing their job?
Who would the resident complain to the elected board? Say they didn't do anything. Where do they go then?
Again, just, this is my thought, this is my position.
Yeah.
I respect the independence of the boards when they're elected. It's one thing if it's appointed by the Board of Selectmen, but if the citizens appoint people to run a particular board, I think it should be up to them to discipline the people that they hire.
I do feel they should discipline. But if that doesn't happen, you won't get it done.
And we have the wrong people in those elected positions. I wish the community knew that then. Because honestly, the community doesn't know it.
So is there a clear breakdown somewhere? What positions do not exist underneath the town manager today?
Yes. Under the
Any elected.
So, for example, the rec committee,
Yes.
the employees under the rec committee are not actually, the full-time employees do not actually report in. They're on a day-to-day basis.
Library,
The library,
Board of Health,
okay,
assessors. And
Yeah.
assessors is kind of.
Well,
Not the board
The
of health
assessor.
and the assessors now, because under the act that changed.
the Board of Health hasn't changed yet, has it?
No, Board of
The
Health.
Board of Assessors
The
did,
assessor.
and Treasurer Collector's
And
Office, yeah.
Treasurer.
So, I debate the argument, and I know where Mr. Rosenfield's coming from, but I debate it from the time that the Board of Selectmen in Upton before 2008 was an elected board that had people working for them. And we would be, I being one of them, would be working in our careers, and we would have to take time to come back to Upton to resolve issues, whether it be discipline or whatever. And it became nearly impossible to manage that. Thus, the importance of having a town manager to help manage the operations of the town. I had an elected official that did not want to surrender, in his words, the authority of the person that worked for him. And my argument was, well, if the Board of Selectmen could surrender authority to a town manager, why couldn't another elected board do same? And to me, it's logical. And I know where you're coming from. An elected board should have sovereignty. They do have the right to hire. If there was discipline involved, they do have the right to be involved in the discipline. But I just think we have become the size of the town that my personal opinion is, I think the town manager needs to be able to facilitate the roles, get involved in the roles of all employees that are full-time within the town. That's just.
Honestly, I know this is drastic, but if there's an elected official and kind of danced around and some employee is not showing up 2 out of 5 days a week, then you know what, maybe there shouldn't be an elected board for that particular department. Maybe the power should be condensed, whether it's a town manager to have more authority, because then those elected officials aren't doing their job. So.
And
So your concern was that, what you expressed last week was that the residents should make a conscious decision to change the authority of an elected board and give that authority to the town manager. If the select board agrees that the town manager should have that authority, that's going to go before a town meeting. And that's the opportunity for voters to
Well, I understand
agree with it or not.
Right.
So would that meet your?
No, it doesn't change my opinion,
Okay,
because honestly, they're elected to perform all services in my mind within that department. It isn't a half-baked thing where you do responsibilities and then if you don't feel like doing responsibilities, you don't. I take when a citizen elects you to do public service, as our chairperson was talking about, all right? I recall being a selectman, I put in 20, 30 hours every week after working as an attorney all day. And that's what I thought the position required. To me, that's the Board of Health. That's any elected board. That's what the responsibilities are. Change it completely then. Maybe there shouldn't be elected boards for that if they're not willing to put in the time. If for whatever reason, citizens who citizens aren't willing to serve that to what it really means. It's more than just getting elected and having a ginger ale that you got elected. You have responsibilities when you get elected as a public person.
I have a concern with consistency comes to discipline. And when the board of selectmen do step in, if it's a performance issue, that's one issue, but if an employee has a criminal complaint against it, they will, if another employee walks in and says to the town manager, this is a sexual harassment case, do we then have to go to the elected board and deal with that? There should be a level somewhere where the town manager steps in and takes care of that, because right now it can bounce around for a time before anybody has the responsibility to manage that.
I mean, the HR department is responsible and Joe's personnel director is responsible. There's an allegation of such things.
What if it's a board? What if it's an appointed board that has that employee?
An appointed board or
An appointed board who,
it would report.
Appointed or
I mean,
elected.
an elected board, they appointed an employee. When do you step in? At what level of offense would step in?
You would have to go to HR. That's where any sexual harassment, intimidation, bullying, or anything should go in the HR department, whether you want to involve it or not.
Is that clear in the policy?
It's well in the personnel bylaws, their policy and procedure manual, there is a process for it. And yes,
Does the current job description for the human resource person identify that he or she is responsible for all town employees' performance or disputes, whatever the proper language is? Does the job description say that for that person? Probably not. So maybe the job description has to be changed. Okay. So until let's see what the writing is and what it says, it's
Okay.
premature.
well, my last comment to what you said, and I'll try and make this as simple as possible, not being sarcastic. If the Board of Selectmen can delegate their legal authority to a town manager to handle personnel matters, why can't other elected boards do the same? Okay, so we could debate this. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Now,
Does the Board of Selectmen have,
She was speaking.
I'm sorry,
well, in that instance that you were talking about, that is on the state, okay? That is the place to go, any such actions, harassment, like I said.
But the town has to step in immediately with something like
Yes, they
that.
do.
Somebody in town has to,
Yes,
and that would be the town manager.
yes, the personnel director, he is also designated as a person.
And that's in the job description.
Yes.
We'll look at
That's
that.
in
We'll look at
the
that.
You want to borrow this?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, just bring it back, because it's a Bible unto itself, but it's pretty detailed. It goes into specifics, so.
That's fine.
Okay, some other questions for the chairperson?
The town manager currently has the authority to sign invoices up to 25,000. We discussed last week whether we should raise that to 50. Does the select board agree?
I can't speak for.
Do you agree? No. Okay.
Can I ask? Reason? Just, not, just,
It's just a lot of money.
okay,
And I think we should be cognizant of all the finances.
Mhm.
I think thousands. of
Okay.
money, that's me.
no, it used to be,
Not
used to be,
more.
now they more, no. Other questions? I had one here, I have to find it.
You want yours back?
No, I've got another.
On the current work chart, which I think was published last year in the finance committee report, is that where that work chart? I think so. So the current work chart shows the custodian, Paul, reporting to the town manager. And the question is, given now that we have a official facilities director, wouldn't it make sense and change that if it hasn't already been done, so that the custodian reports to the facilities director.
Is the employee of facilities.
Yeah.
I would say so.
Well, one of the questions I have is, and this came up again last week, the 15-day notice of approval for hiring. Would you have any input on what we classify as the town manager appointment? In other words, is there a significant difference town manager appointing a part-time person to a full-time, or in your opinion, should the board have that 15 days on all appointment? Okay.
And speaking of 15 days notice,
Mhm.
we just did an appointment last night. We didn't get the notice until last Thursday. 15 days and you know, already denied and start date February 26th. That I have a problem.
Well, that's something you'll have to take up. Yeah, not with us. Yeah. Okay.
What has worked and what hasn't worked? I'll give you Alan's questions. What do you like about the town manager act, and what do you believe may require changes?
What do I like with interacting with the town? I like the job, period. I like to be responsible for what they elected me. I don't get that feel quite as much right now. We're not informed. That's being judged.
Well, that's what we're here for, trying to figure out in the act where that may have to change. And it's gonna be coming from the Board of Selectmen that provides us with that information, working with whatever the town managers here, not just here. I know there's been issues in the past with previous town managers also. What would you suggest for changes?
One thing to notify the board in the time plan. Sometimes we don't get things on the agenda, and I know it's very busy in the office until like Monday before or the Tuesday off. I think there's a lot on the plate right now, but that's what we're supposed to be there for, is to help. We'll make the decisions. I think that's very important. You can't make a decision unless you have the information.
Where in the act would that have to be changed? I'm not asking you personally, but just.
Well, I don't know. I'll speak for myself. I found it as part of the responsibility, and I'm sure Alan did as well. I found that your obligation was, well, it was different for us. I have to be careful because we didn't have the support system at that time. But when we did get a town manager, I found that because of the actions and everything that was going on, that it was incumbent on me to go and not seek the information, but update myself. And I won't get into specifics, but in my opinion, is town manager has a lot on the plate. When you consider we are now a town pushing 9,000 people, and the budgetary process and all the interactions and the staff we had. I found it rewarding to go, and I would designate a time each week and sit with the town manager. Is that something that, if the act said should be required, that an hour a week be spent on the phone, verbal contact, where you have interaction with the board? Can't make decisions, but legally could get on the phone as long as they don't make decisions. And the town manager briefs the board on here's where we are in this, here's where we are in that, here's where we are in that, and gives the board an update that way. It would mandate that the town manager would have to communicate the board on all issues within that time frame.
Then you file a meeting. Even though you don't vote, you're polling the board. I mean, your hands are tied there.
Well. Okay. I don't know what to say beyond that. Yep.
One of the responsibilities in the act currently is that the town manager serve as an arbiter of grievances and the chief union negotiator. So my question is, how can one person be both an arbiter, like a mediator, and a union negotiator at the same time? So is that something that you think perhaps needs to be changed?
Now, question for this.
Right, so
And
does that mean that
and unions, but the-
I guess I read that different.
okay.
So I would think that if there's a contractually required arbitration system, the contract actually drives what the arbitration structure looks like, and where that arbitrator comes from. But I think on a day-to-day basis, I would imagine the town managers constantly arbitrating between groups in order to facilitate and keep things forward in support of the town. I would view that as being an important part of their job
Well, I was thinking more in the
More
context,
negotiation.
from a negotiations.
but I was thinking more if a union person files a grievance against the town and the town manager is the negotiator for the town, that union contract, how can that town manager be in the position of both negotiating a contract while attempting to arbitrate a grievance at the same time?
You said, I look at it like the role of the superintendent at schools.
Okay,
I look at it like, they may not be they're not the final spot because that piece didn't grow, but I think initially that superintendent arbitrates that grievance, trying to resolve it in a, call it a less costly way and a less administrative way to start. If it cannot be resolved in that way, and so on. And then they do act as kind of chief negotiator too, and be a contract. I guess that's the way I would look at it. I think anybody in a,
maybe I was
just
just
a leader,
not understanding,
but maybe it needs to be clarified.
I don't know, I was just not understanding. It just seemed to me that just reading the words, it sounds like you're mediating grievances and negotiating a contract. And I don't know if those two things were
Yeah.
compatible. Maybe they are.
I think the grievance is gonna take a process that's already in the contract somewhere when it gets to,
Right.
there'll be initial arbitration, discussion, however you want to put. Arbitrary might not be the right word there, but, and then they'll go to step one, they'll go to step two, they'll go to step three, and one of those steps is gonna require.
I mean, the reason this came to my mind was I was, watching the news with the Newton teacher strike. They had a professional mediator and now this was negotiating a contract. It wasn't a grievance, but I didn't know if what they would do if someone filed a grievance, would they have a neutral third party?
Depending on the step, but no, I don't know. The unions I've been involved with, there'll be a step process and eventually you're gonna get.
They go to the mediator and last.
Yeah, it might be the last phase. The first phase, and there's 3 or 4 different phases to it before you get to a professional arbitrator. You may be a negotiator initially. Sure. I think that word gets expanded too far for us.
Okay,
I think.
so.
I agree.
So what I'm understanding is if there's a grievance, the town manager would attempt to resolve the grievance first. And if that wasn't successful, then it would escalate, whatever, based on what's in the contract.
Through the steps, yeah.
Through the steps, okay.
And
Wouldn't it be the responsibility of the human resource officer if there's a performance, not the town manager? If that 2-year training is a human resource person who supposedly deals with somebody that's not showing up is it still a 4-day?
he's talking about something.
Is it still a 4-day work week or is it back to a 5? It's a 4-day work week, right?
4.
Okay, I remember at some point it was 4 days a week. No one came here on Friday. But the reality is it's a human resource person who would talk with somebody about their job performance. That's what our select person is telling us they're gonna change the description of that person's role and responsibilities. I think that needs to be done first. Then it would be a problem, it wouldn't be a problem. Then it would be that person's responsibility to bring it to the attention of that person. That person might be in a union. And if so, then the union would certainly get involved and advocate on behalf of their person. But
So, I mean, I see what you're saying, but this is, what I was asking was more of a grievance, not a personnel issue necessarily. Somebody files a grievance for whatever reason, they claim this, the town violated the union's contract in some way, they file a grievance. So are you saying that the personnel director should be the one who would get
I
involved?
think that
first?
person should be involved because I'm assuming that we send that person to a program and educate that person.
Well, maybe not. I mean, the town could in fact be
Well,
violating.
I would hope that the
contract.
person who now is in that role was educated, went to a training seminar or something and goes back annually or whatever, or somehow, is updated on events and such. I mean, again, yes, I think it's a human resource person and that person reports to the town manager. But otherwise, why do you have the human resource? Why don't you give to the town manager the human resource responsibility and save $60,000-$70,000 a year, that if that person isn't gonna have that type.
Yeah, I look at human resource issues being different than the
Exactly.
grievances. The grievances to me are more like union contractual issues, like, so if I think about, you experienced too, back at the school, normally a grievance was driven from the standpoint that somebody was asked to do something that they didn't view as in the purview of what their responsibilities were, or what the contract was stating. It wasn't really a HR issue like they had. Like there was sexual harassment, or there was
Well said.
bullying, or there was like a refusal to work, or an issue with personal days. It was more like, my job is to, I'm in charge of this piece of paper, this notebook, and this, but now I'm being asked to move this phone. And I don't view that as being, but the way the contract might be written is it's, there's a broad enough scope that as the leader, you have the ability to say, no, you should do that. So it becomes more to me a contractual issue for grievances versus a personnel issue.
I agree. Exactly right. So. Okay, moving on.
Okay.
You have more questions? You have a question?
Can the town manager approve overtime for employees who are hired by elected board?
I think the, like, boards, the Karen, the overtime right now, unless, as long as they have the budget, it's budgeted for, then they would be responsible to.
Now, in the town, in the act, it said that any purchase that an elected board may make, the Board of Health buys something, or the library trustees buy something, that purchase needs to be reviewed by the town manager to make sure it's not in violation of any state law. Yeah.
It's also the procurement.
And he's also the procurement officer. So the question is, who ultimately approves payment of the invoice once the purchase is paid? Is it the elected board or is it the town manager?
When the warrants come through, everybody's bills are on with warrants, and it's the town manager that signs the warrants, and it's the elected board that signs the bill that you can put on.
So just by virtue of the elected board signing the bill to put it on the warrant, doesn't mean it's going to get paid.
No, it's the approved by the town, and it goes through the town manager.
So in effect, the town manager is responsible for approving payment of invoice.
The town accountant's responsible for these signs.
Okay. Well, then, does the town accountant approve the payment or just confirm that it's in the budget and it's legal?
Well, that's the proof.
That's,
It has to be legal and it has to be.
okay.
Does anybody from the town ever sign that document? Other than appointed people? Does an elected person sign any of those?
There's a form that they have to fill out to pay any bills. And it would be, I think, the way it used to be, run is whoever was in charge of the department would process the bills and it would go to the department manager. And they would approve and send it to the town accountant, who would either approve it or doesn't approve it, to make sure the funds are there, it's legal. And then it will go to the board.
There is a check and balance, is basically what you're saying through the whole process. An elected official has to show documentation as to their approval of it before it goes through the process. So if hypothetically the library was going to buy new bookshelves, they would have to approve that as a board of library trustees, then it would go to the accountant. And then finally, if I see this right, and correct me if I'm wrong, the town manager's role is to make sure that the expenditure is compliant with the town's bylaws and the town's budget. And the procurement, correct? Yeah, okay. Anything else? He's basically going through some of the things we discussed last week, so he's not the Q&A guy. A lot of this came up last week and he's filing questions. I'd like to turn it over to you. Anything you would like to say or comment about?
As far as the actors itself, I don't see those dramatic.
We've addressed
We'll fix
those.
those.
The gender will be changed from him to, or his. Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, we're
We
gonna be,
haven't got the paperwork yet.
well, it's still, to use the term, his appointment is still incorrect.
I know you have to go.
Yeah, so, yeah, so, well, we will amend that, or
And we
propose to.
change the Board of Selectmen to select.
So,
The paperwork.
well, we could still change it.
We can still change,
So,
not like they're not gonna.
Hasn't been approved.
Mhm. Yeah.
My one vote at town meeting.
yeah, I've been there when one vote did count, believe me. Yeah, you never say never. So,
I think it's spelled, the act itself is spelled out.
Mhm.
Except, minor changes. in it.
okay,
So,
good.
it's-
Good, well, we thank you for giving up your time to come in. We appreciate it.
Sorry.
Well, that was, I could see the confusion when normally meetings start at 7. We were originally 7. It was moved to 6.
Okay.
No, when you and I spoke on the phone, I probably did say 7, so I'll take the hit. But yeah, and it was changed to 6 o'clock. And the reason we changed this, gentlemen's not here, but we changed it out of that compliance, so I guess it's gonna stay that way. We will not be meeting next week because some members on the board have to spend Valentine's Day at home. So,
Oh.
did I say that too loud? So, we will be meeting again the 21st and Selectman Simus will be here. And then the week after, we've asked Joe to reach out to Laura and ask her if she'd like to come in as well. So we will see all the board members. And we think it's only fair that everybody gets, an input on this, so. Okay, what?
Yeah,
I am. You knew that.
yes.
But a lot has changed since 2008, trust me. And a lot of this was the result of research on other towns and how they did it. But, everything needs to constantly be adjusted. So I think it's a good thing this is reviewed on a 5-year basis and be reviewed and upgraded when necessary. Because the town evolves, why shouldn't this? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Anything else before the board?
Any public comments?
Excuse me, I was gonna anything the town manager would like to ask? Okay, thank you for being here. Is that, I'd accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Unanimous? And it is motion to adjourn at 7:04. Accepted. We're no longer in session. Thank you.